And it's really a story about people that's designed in some ways as an on-ramp into the Halo universe for people who are not familiar with it. And the best way to connect people to ideas is through other people.
Welcome to another episode of Family Gamer TV. I'm with Frank O'Connor. What's your title at 343?
It's very long and boring. I'm Franchise Development Director.
Mm-hmm. And 343 are the developers behind the new Halo game, Halo 4.
Yep.
So what makes Halo 4 different from the previous Halo franchise?
There's definitely a lot of things that are going to be familiar to people. The game feels like a Halo game, but it's expanded in a lot of significant ways. I think one of the biggest differences for people is going to be the look. Obviously, graphics are. We have kind of some new ways of rendering the graphics It's kind of an evolution of the engine. Some of it we rebuilt from the ground up. Some of it is just part of the sort of constantly evolving nature of the engine. But there's a bunch of new game features too. We have a new mode called Spartan Ops, which is it's episodic. It's kind of like a TV show that you play. Mm-hmm. And we've included a new, much more meaningful player progression system in the multiplayer that actually affects the way your Spartan controls and is armed and is empowered. Whereas before it was mostly just aesthetic changes.
Mm-hmm. So you mentioned a TV show style there. Yeah. Is that one of the ways you may be embracing a more sort of a broader audience and looking how, as the Halo player has maybe grown up and has kids? You mentioned earlier, some of the studio have had kids while you've been developing. Yeah. How does that sort of pan out for Halo?
Spartan Ops, it's not so much a broadening exercise. It's really a way to find new ways to tell stories and to have people experience gameplay. I think when you have let's say it's an 8 to 10 hour campaign, as designers and as narrative designers, our team can't really control the pace at which you play. People will pause it, they'll save their game, they'll come back a couple of days later. So their experience tends to be either giant and enduring or broken up into little pieces. Spartan Ops lets us tell these small, discrete chunks of story about real characters and about sort of meaningful events in the Halo universe, and small, bite-sized chunks of gameplay, so that we can much better control the kind of emotional and dramatic arc of the fiction, and have these much more digestible chunks of gameplay that don't demand a giant investment in time and effort for people who, maybe have other things to do and maybe have jobs to go to and stuff like that. But it's definitely a new way to distribute gameplay and fiction for us.
Mm-hmm. So creating those story elements, does that mean you've pulled in different disciplines in terms of like movie makers and storytellers into the studio?
I think that generally the video game industry is starting to draw from Hollywood and vice versa. Sometimes people get hired into Hollywood out of the video game industry, and I think it's because there's a lot of things in common. Some of the technology is the same, for example, but storytelling is storytelling, and no matter what the media or the format that you use to sort of broadcast those narratives, a lot of the same techniques and skills and talent are required.
And so when you've been recruiting for the studio, mm-hmm. Have you seen a broadening in ages of the team? Is it a young team still, or?
Yeah, we still have. It's a pretty young industry, but I'm one of the older people there, but not the oldest by any stretch of the imagination. I'm 42, but we have a fairly broad, disparate cross section of humanity at the studio. I mean, we have one thing that I'm particularly pleased about is when I first started in the industry, it was almost all guys, and now we have a lot more female employees across every discipline. My boss is a woman. Our executive producer is a woman. We have female animators, female narrative, female designers. So in that way, there's been a tremendous broadening. And also this project required that we hired people literally from all over the world. We had to grow a studio from 9 people about 4 years ago to 300 people now. And we have people from AAA game studios all over the world. We have people from Japan, we have people from Europe, we have people from North and South America, people from Africa. We have a really broad and diverse population of people. And the cool thing about that is that you get so many different perspectives and ideas and talents that it all feeds into the quality of the game.
Mm-hmm. And the storytelling in the game is in engine. Yeah, that's right. How does that relate to the sort of the real world sort of shorts that we see around the Halo launch?
Yeah, so we have most of our cinematics in the game are in engine. The exception to that is there's a couple of pieces of the story that are told in very high quality CG. There's actually a prologue to the game that will introduce you to some of the elements of the universe that is not an engine. And Spartan Ops episodes, while they use the game assets as the basis for the graphics, they're actually CG, pre-rendered CG. But as is traditional with Halo, the in-game cinematics are in the game engine and live, as it were. But you're right, we typically around the launch of a Halo game, we produce a lot of live action material, and usually it's commercials. This time we have a digital TV series called Forward Unto Dawn, which is live action, starts on October 5th.
Yeah,
and
we're looking forward to that, yeah.
Yeah, it'll air weekly until the game launches. And it's a story about people. It's a story about cadets in an elite academy on a distant world for the children of military brass. And it's really a story about people that's designed in some ways as an on-ramp into the Halo universe for people who are not familiar with it. And the best way to connect people to ideas is through other people.
Great, well thanks for your time. That's a great insight into Halo. We'll be back with more Family Gamer TV soon.